For most of modern American history, success was measured by how close you were to everything. Close to work, close to restaurants, close to entertainment, close to opportunity. That meant living in cities, or at least near dense urban centers where life was fast, compact, and constantly moving. Apartments were small, commutes were long, and space was expensive. For decades, Americans accepted that trade-off. But something has shifted. More and more Americans now want more space. Not just a bigger house, but more land, more breathing room, more separation between work and life, more quiet, and more control over their environment. And this shift is changing housing markets, migration patterns, and even the future of American cities. So why is this happening? Why are Americans suddenly prioritizing space more than ever before? The answer starts with how dramatically life has changed over the last 20 years. In the past, living in dense cities made sense because everything depended on proximity. Jobs were centralized. Offices required physical presence. Entertainment and social life were concentrated in urban hubs. If you wanted opportunity, you had to be close to it. Space was the trade-off. If you wanted opportunity, you gave up square footage. But technology slowly started to break that equation. The internet made communication instant. Smartphones made connectivity constant. Cloud computing made work digital. Video calls replaced meetings. Entire industries moved online. And then remote work accelerated everything. When millions of Americans discovered they could work from home, the relationship between space and work changed completely. For the first time in modern history, your job no longer determined how much space you could afford or where you had to live. That shift unlocked a powerful desire that had been suppressed for decades. People wanted room to live, not just room inside their homes, but room outside them. Backyards, garages, driveways, home offices, extra bedrooms, quiet neighborhoods, fewer shared walls, less noise, less congestion. Space became more than a luxury, it became a lifestyle choice. One of the biggest drivers of this shift is the experience of urban density itself. Big cities offer opportunity, but they also come with trade-offs that have become harder to ignore. Small apartments, high rent, constant noise, traffic congestion, crowded public transportation, limited privacy, limited parking, and very little personal outdoor space. For younger generations especially, these conditions are increasingly seen as stressful rather than exciting. A generation ago, living in a small apartment in a major city was often seen as a rite of passage, something temporary on the way to success. But for many young Americans today, it no longer feels temporary. It feels permanent. And that changes how people think about space. At the same time, lifestyle expectations have changed. Americans are spending more time at home than ever before. Home is no longer just a place to sleep. It is now an office, a gym, a school, an entertainment center, and a social space. When one location has to serve all these functions, space becomes much more important. A cramped apartment can feel limiting when you are working, relaxing, exercising, and socializing all in the same room. A larger home with separate spaces suddenly becomes much more valuable. The pandemic intensified this realization. Millions of Americans spent extended periods inside their homes, and many realized just how important space actually is to daily well-being. People who once didn't think much about square footage suddenly started noticing every limitation. No office space, no quiet room, no outdoor area, no separation between work and personal life. That experience permanently changed expectations. Another major factor is mental health. More Americans are openly discussing stress, burnout, anxiety, and the need for personal balance. Space plays a direct role in that. Crowded environments, constant noise, and lack of privacy can increase stress levels. On the other hand, larger living spaces, access to nature, and quieter neighborhoods are often associated with improved mental well-being. For many people, moving to places with more space is not just a financial decision, it is an emotional one. It is about reducing stress and improving quality of life. Another powerful driver is family life. As Americans start families, space becomes even more important. Children need room to play. Parents need separation between work and family life. Households need flexibility for growth, guests, and daily routines. In dense urban apartments, this can be difficult. In suburban or rural homes, it becomes much easier. That is why many people who leave cities often do so around major life transitions, marriage, children, or career stability. But there is also an economic angle. For many Americans, especially middle-class families, space is becoming more affordable outside major cities. Housing prices in dense urban centers have risen faster than wages in many cases, making large homes nearly impossible for average earners. Meanwhile, suburban and smaller city markets often offer significantly more space for the same cost. A home that might be a small apartment in a big city could become a full house with a yard in another region. That economic difference is driving migration patterns across the country. States like Texas, Florida, Tennessee, Arizona, and parts of the Midwest and Southeast are attracting people who want more space for their money. This is not just about affordability, it is about value. Americans are increasingly asking a simple question: what am I actually getting for what I pay? And space is becoming a key part of that calculation. Remote work made this even more powerful. When people are no longer required to live near offices, they are free to choose space over proximity. This has led to one of the biggest lifestyle shifts in modern America: the movement from apartments to houses and from dense cities to suburban and exurban areas. But this shift is not only physical, it is psychological. Space represents freedom. Freedom from noise, freedom from crowds, freedom from constant stimulation, freedom to control your environment. In a world that often feels fast, crowded, and overwhelming, space becomes a form of relief. Another important factor is infrastructure and design. Modern suburban developments are increasingly designed to maximize livability rather than just density. Parks, walking trails, larger homes, home offices, garages, and community spaces are becoming standard in many new developments. Even small cities are beginning to adapt, offering a hybrid lifestyle that combines affordability with space and access to amenities. This makes the idea of leaving big cities even more attractive. Technology also plays a role in reducing the need for physical proximity. Social life no longer depends entirely on living near friends or family. People stay connected through video calls, social media, messaging apps, and online communities. Entertainment is also digital. Streaming services, gaming, and online content mean that people no longer need to be in entertainment hubs to enjoy culture. This reduces one of the biggest historical advantages of dense cities. As a result, space becomes even more valuable relative to location. But there is a trade-off. More space often means longer commutes in traditional setups or fewer nearby amenities. It can also mean more isolation if not balanced properly. That is why the modern American ideal is shifting toward a hybrid model. Not extreme isolation in rural areas, not extreme density in major cities, but something in between. Suburbs, small cities, and outer metro areas are becoming the sweet spot. They offer space without total disconnection. They offer affordability without complete isolation. They offer flexibility without sacrificing access to opportunity. Looking forward, the demand for space is likely to continue growing. As housing costs remain high in cities, as remote work persists, and as lifestyle priorities shift toward health and balance, Americans will continue seeking environments that give them more room to live. At the same time, builders, developers, and cities are adapting to this demand by creating larger homes, mixed-use communities, and expanded suburban developments. The definition of the ideal home is changing. It is no longer just about location, it is about experience. How it feels to live there every day. And increasingly, that experience is defined by space. More room to think, more room to work, more room to live. In the end, the reason Americans want more space is not complicated. It reflects a deeper shift in values. From status to comfort, from density to balance, from proximity to freedom. And as America continues to evolve, space is becoming one of the most important currencies in modern life. Not just square feet, but the freedom that comes with them.